A slap echoed through the diner. Heads turned. A young disabled girl sat frozen, her cheek burning red. The bullies laughed, towering over her, mocking every fragile movement she made. She was small, powerless, easy to target. The room stayed silent, pretending not to see. But what they didn't know was that in less than an hour, the door would swing open and everything would change. Tell us in the comments, what would you have done in that moment? Before we begin, hit subscribe. It's appreciated. It was supposed to be a simple evening. Emily, a quiet teenager with a gentle smile, had gone to the local diner after school. She used a brace to walk, the result of a condition she'd been born with, but she never let it stop her from trying to live as normally as possible. The diner was her safe place, where the smell of fries and coffee always made her feel at home, where she could sit in her favorite booth near the window and sketch in her notebook. She was used to stares, whispers, the occasional cruel laugh, but she had learned to tune it out, building walls around her heart. Her mom always told her she was stronger than she realized. But Emily didn't feel strong. She just wanted to blend in, to be invisible in a world that often reminded her she was different. That night, she carried a tray of fries and a soda to her booth, balancing carefully, hoping not to draw attention. Outside, the sun had dipped, leaving the town bathed in neon signs and headlights. Inside, the diner buzzed softly with clinking cups and conversations. For a moment, it felt ordinary, safe, but safety never lasted long for her. Across the room, a group of local teens noticed her, the kind who walked in with too much noise, too much swagger, as if the world owed them respect. They saw her and they smirked. The kind of smirk that promised trouble. Emily lowered her head, focusing on her fries, pretending not to notice. But deep inside, her stomach tightened. She had seen those looks before, and she knew what often followed. What would you do if you were in Emily's place, alone, vulnerable, and the center of cruel eyes? The group of teens swaggered toward Emily's booth, their laughter sharp enough to slice through the hum of the diner. One of them leaned over, tapping her notebook with mock curiosity, flipping through her sketches without permission. The others snickered, making loud comments about her brace, her walk, her very existence. Emily kept her eyes on the table, gripping her soda with trembling hands. She had learned that silence sometimes lessened the storm. But this time, it only seemed to fuel them. One boy reached out and snatched a fry from her plate. Another blocked the aisle so she couldn't leave. The room had grown heavier. Customers shifted uncomfortably, but no one stepped in. The staff glanced their way, then looked down again, afraid to escalate things. Then it happened. The slap. Quick, sharp, cruel. A hand across her face that made the diner gasp. Emily's cheek flushed red, her body stiff with shock. The teens erupted into laughter, proud of their cruelty, as if they had put on a show. But beneath their laughter, something else was brewing. A truck rumbled outside, the kind that made the windows of the diner vibrate. A moment passed and the door swung open. Leather jackets, heavy boots. A group of bikers stepped inside, their presence commanding the room instantly. Their eyes scanned the diner, sharp, alert, not missing a thing. The bullies froze, their smirks faltering. The laughter died. They hadn't expected witnesses like this. The bikers ordered coffee, calm and casual, but their glances lingered on Emily's red cheek and the trembling tray in front of her. Emily lowered her head, wishing to disappear, but one biker caught her gaze for a brief moment. It wasn't pity, it was something else. A silent recognition, a warning to the bullies that their cruelty hadn't gone unnoticed. Tension rippled across the diner. The teens shifted uneasily, whispering to one another, their bravado starting to crack. Something was about to happen, but no one could predict how. The bullies tried to laugh again, pretending everything was fine, but the weight of the room had shifted. The clock ticked louder. Every sip of coffee, every scrape of a chair, felt like a countdown. The teens were trapped between pride and fear, and the bikers were watching. The question hung in the air. What would break first? The bullies' arrogance or the bikers' patience? The silence broke like glass. One of the bullies, desperate to reclaim control, shoved Emily's notebook to the floor, pages scattering under the tables. He laughed, louder than before, trying to prove he wasn't afraid. But the sound didn't carry the same power anymore. It trembled, hollow against the thick air of the diner. A chair scraped. Heavy boots hit the floor. One of the bikers stood. He was broad, his leather jacket patched with years of roads traveled, his face worn but steady. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The room seemed to shrink as his shadow stretched across the tiles. The bullies' eyes darted, the confidence draining from their faces as they realized this wasn't a game anymore. He picked up Emily's notebook, brushing off the dust, and set it gently back on her table. Then he turned, his gaze fixed on the bullies. They shifted uneasily, trying to hold their ground, but every second of silence pressed harder on them than any words could. The biker finally spoke, his voice calm but edged with steel. And in that moment, the laughter was gone. The bullies' smirks vanished. The diner held its breath. The bikers behind him leaned forward, silent support radiating from every leather jacket, every steady stare. The teens were surrounded, not by fists, but by something heavier. Accountability. Emily sat frozen, heart racing, the heat in her cheek mixing with the sting of humiliation and the sudden flood of relief. The question burned through the air, unspoken but undeniable. What would happen next? Would the bikers let the bullies slink away, or were they about to learn a lesson they'd never forget? What do you think? If you were in that diner, would you expect justice or mercy? The bullies didn't laugh anymore. Their bravado had crumbled under the weight of eyes that saw right through them. One of them tried to mumble an excuse, another backed toward the door. But the bikers weren't interested in excuses. They stepped closer, calm but unyielding, making it clear that cruelty had consequences. Without lifting a hand, the message was delivered. The teens shuffled out of the diner, their shoulders hunched, their voices quiet. For the first time that night, Emily wasn't the smallest person in the room. She wasn't invisible. She was seen, protected, not as someone broken, but as someone who deserved respect. The lead biker turned back to her, nodded once, and returned to his seat. Nothing more was said, but in that silence was power. A statement louder than any threat. No one gets to treat another human being like that and walk away with pride. Emily picked up her notebook, her hands still trembling, but something inside her shifted. The fear hadn't vanished, but it had been challenged by a new thought. She wasn't as alone in the world as she had believed. Sometimes justice shows up in unexpected ways through people you never imagined would care. This wasn't just a diner story. It was a reminder. Cruelty feeds on silence, but courage, sometimes quiet, sometimes loud, can stop it in its tracks. So the question remains, how many times will we stay silent, watching injustice unfold? And how many times will we choose to stand up, like those bikers, and change the story? Show some love with a like, and subscribe to stay inspired.